Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to tell you the story of the Johnsons. Their real names are hidden to protect their identity. These are the Johnsons. Mr. Johnson is 39 years old and Mrs. Johnson is 35 years old. They have two amazing children, Michael and Janet. I met the Johnsons about a year ago at a friend's birthday party here in Canada. They had just landed in Canada about a month before the party, and they had that new landed immigrant look about them. They were in awe of everything, excited to be in Canada, taking pictures all over the place, spending the money they brought from home, and just generally soaking in the goodness of Canada. Every new immigrant right now is reminiscing, good old days, when we felt so lucky to be in Canada. Yes, that's a mood. We were in that mood that day I met them at the party. Somehow, we didn't exchange numbers, even though I intended to get their number before leaving the party. But a year after that first party, which was just a couple of months ago, I met them again at another party. Seems we run in the same circles. And we got talking. I noticed, however, that the new landed immigrant excitement was fading, which is natural, of course, because they had been in Canada about a year at this point. And then, in the course of the discussion, I asked them that all-important question: how are you guys coping? Oh my God. It looked like they were just waiting for me to ask them that question, because they started talking about the difficulties they were having in Canada. And I paid particular attention to the top money mistakes I heard them say they were making. And you know what? Newsflash. As a new immigrant, I made many of those same exact mistakes, the same ones. And I know that many new immigrants are falling into the same money mistakes pit. It's like a vicious cycle, which I want to expose with today's video. The information in today's video is actually for new immigrants in all the major first world countries, not just Canada. I will call these mistakes new immigrant money mindset mistakes. The first mistake that the Johnsons were making, which many immigrants make, is credit card misuse. I'm an African. And back home, credit is like a taboo. We know they borrow money like that. And even though things are changing these days, there was no credit card back then. So coming here and being told that you need credit card, people go on one of two extremes. They either do not use their available credit cards and consequently fail to build a credit card score or a credit history, or just like the Johnsons, they overuse the credit cards. When I asked further, the Johnsons admitted that they had multiple credit cards and they had maxed out all of them. Horror of horrors. Because dear Mr. Johnson had not found a good job yet, and there were bills to be paid. So the credit cards were the ones paying all the bills. They were in a pile of credit card debt after being in Canada for just 1 year. 1 year old. So dear new immigrants, the banks and the credit card companies will entice you with credit cards. The big stores will do the same. Resist. You should have maybe 2 credit cards that you use very, very wisely. How do you use them wisely? First off, I need you to know that in Canada, debt is good, as long as you pay it back on time. Try to limit your credit card utilization to about 30% of your credit card limit. For example, if your credit card is $5,000, try and stay within the spending range of $1,500 every month. If you need to spend more, of course, do that. It's not set in stone. But realize that credit card money is not free money, and it could affect your credit score. A credit card basically is supposed to help you build credit history and a good credit score. And you do this by paying back the credit card balance on time every single month. That way, the banks and the lenders are confident that you will pay back your debt. And this is particularly important when you want to apply for mortgage, large purchases, or even when you want to apply for certain jobs. Ultimately, I will tell you what I told the Johnsons. From today, use your credit card to spend on what you would normally spend on, even if you didn't have a credit card. So it's easy to pay back regularly without blinking. Then I asked them if they had received their child care benefits. Remember their two kids, Michael and Janet? Mr. and Mrs. Johnson were looking at me as if I just landed from space. And that is when I realized they were making the second major mistake: not filing taxes. Not filing taxes, especially in the first year of landing. Their argument: oh, we came in November and we didn't start working until the next year. And their friend James told them there was no need to file taxes. James, why? Dear new immigrant, file your taxes the first year you land in Canada, even if you did not work in that year. If you don't file, you may not get the benefits and the rebates that you would have been eligible for the previous year. To file taxes, please file on time, as it is usually due by April 30th of the year, usually for individuals in Canada. Personally, I always file that last week before the deadline. Note to self, Shay, change your ways. So please don't make this mistake of not filing your taxes. Surprisingly, new immigrants that even manage to file taxes many times are not even aware of all the benefits and credits that apply to them. So dear new immigrants, please leave no money on the table. If you went to church that year and you didn't work, but you gave some offerings in church, you can get a tax credit on your offerings. In addition, you can even be eligible for rental assistance if you live in Saskatchewan. You just need to know what applies in your own province. I did a detailed video on how to file your taxes. I will leave the link up here and also in the description, so make sure you go check it out. Don't say I don't do anything for you. The third mistake the Johnsons were making became obvious when I asked them about their savings. No, savings. They gave me that bombastic side eye. Didn't you hear that Mr. Johnson never get better work? No vex so. But I boldly told them that even without a good job, they could still save something. That was when I asked them this very formal question. Dear Johnsons, based on your current monthly spending, what item can you cut back on that can enable you save? They were staring at me. They had no idea what they spent on the different expenses category that they had as a family. I mean, they could not even approximate. This time around, I was the one that gave them the bombastic side eye. They had no budget. And that is mistake number 4 for many new immigrants. You are not budgeting. How can you even do that in a new country? Okay, you don't like the word budget, Abby. It's restrictive. Okay, no vex. Let's call it money management. Or let's call it your money guide. Is that better? A money guide will show you where your money is going and what you need to plug. And it will help you stay on track to stay on top of your spending. Simple. I know what you will say next, which is what Mrs. Johnson asked me. But I was ready for her, and I'm ready for you too. How do we budget? Simple. Write down every money you spend in a notebook and what you spend it on. Absolutely everything. You can just use a simple Excel spreadsheet, but I like writing mine in a notebook. And at the end of the month, add everything up. Do it for 3 months, and you will have a fair idea of how you're spending your money and what categories your money is going to. So when we know what next, asked Mr. Johnson. I was also ready for him. And I said to him, you will know your money numbers. Let me explain. There are 3 numbers you need to know. Number 1, you will know how much you spend on compulsory or fixed expenses like mortgage, rent, utilities. These are things that can get you in trouble if not paid. They must be paid. The next one is your non-discretionary spending, like your internet bill or your phone bills. If you don't pay, they might restrict your usage, but you will not get into trouble. Then you will know your discretionary spend, which is things like groceries, clothes, and outings and whatnot. This is where you can cut mercilessly. And whatever you cut here should go into your savings. Don't look at me like that now. You can save. I challenge you, just as I challenged Johnson's that day, to pay yourself first. Put away like 5 to 10% of your take-home pay in a high-interest savings account even before you pay your rent. It works. And that way, you can live on whatever is left. You will not die, trust me. I will leave a budget calculator in the description below so you can start trying your hand on it. At this point, the Johnsons were nodding, and I noticed some light bulbs coming on in their brains. Ding, 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 ding. But I noticed Mrs. Johnson was resisting blotting some things out when I was talking to them about budgeting. You know how you want to say something, but you know it might get you in trouble if you say it. You know that feeling? That feeling. That was how Mrs. Johnson was behaving. So I asked her, Mrs. Johnson, do you think you and your husband will have a challenge in keeping to a budget? She hesitated, like she was trying to make up her mind whether to talk or not to talk. And next thing I heard was, yes, so we have a challenge. And then she opened a can of worms. According to her, not only was Mr. Johnson overspending money, but he had lost them a chunk of money a few months ago by investing in the stock market. Mr. Johnson was combining two big money mistakes here: overspending and investing in the stock market without knowledge. Now, some new immigrants, especially in the first few months of landing abroad, want to pepper them, both home and abroad. But newsflash, nobody cares though. You think people are looking at you? Maybe your friends, sha. But generally, nobody cares. And as for people back home, why do you want to pepper them? Why? You are not in competition with anybody. And even though making investments is good and I would recommend it, but I'm begging you, you need knowledge to invest in the stock market so you don't get your fingers burnt, which is exactly what happened to Mr. Johnson. He read or he heard some people on Facebook recommending a particular stock. And dear Mr. Johnson did not do any further research. He jumped on the stock, invested a chunk of his family's money, and the rest is history. Some of us have this mindset that once we see any investment promising high returns like this, our body will be shaking. We feel we are missing out if we don't invest, forgetting that high return is also equal to high risk. Always get knowledge before investing. You can start with the low interest, low risk investments like GICs, the tax-free savings account, and high interest savings account. And as you gain more knowledge, you can now move to higher interest and more risky investments. Please invest wisely. Now, if you're getting value so far, remember to like the video and subscribe for more financial and money information. Now, last but not least, new immigrants don't want to hear about insurance. But I will still tell you anyway, and I will tell you what I told the Johnsons. Not having the insurance you need is a big money mistake. So insurance like life insurance, critical illness insurance, accident and sickness insurance, and income protection insurance are critical for you to have. I know insurance is like a cuss word for many of us. We know one here, I get it. But just in case of incasity, maybe you have an accident or you fall ill, you want to be able to protect your income, because if you are paid by the hour, like most Canadians are, you will most likely not get paid by your employer when you are recuperating from an accident or a sickness back home. And please note that you cannot rely on disability insurance if you cannot work. The hour is too much. So please consider insurance. They are cheaper than you actually think. So guys, these are the new immigrant money mistakes I want to address in today's video. Tell me, What newcomer financial mistakes did you make as a new immigrant abroad? Or have you heard that anybody has made as a new immigrant abroad? Why don't you leave it in the comments so we can learn one or two things from that experience? If you would like a deep dive into why African immigrants are broke, you might want to check out this video and leave a comment there as well. It's a great video. Thanks for watching, for liking, for sharing, and subscribing. I'm going to see you in the next one. Meanwhile, stay wealthy and stay safe. Bye.